In a recent dinner we had with some of our online community members here in Dusseldorf, I overheard a tip that an international gave another international where I thought, wow, that is gold. We have to talk about that. And that's what this video is about today. And that is to avoid starting a conversation with Sprechen Sie English? And we will tell you why in this video. Hey, my name is Jen and I come from Guatemala.
And my name is Yvonne and I'm German.
And together we're from simplegermany.com, where we create English content to empower internationals to settle into life in Germany more smoothly. So the conversation, as I mentioned, was between two internationals who have been roughly around 2 years, a little bit less, in Germany. And one was saying how they have gone to shops and have asked for help by asking, Sprechen Sie English? And the answer from the German has always, or most often, been Nein. And that's the end of the conversation. And so this international has perceived these interactions, of course, as very rude.
Well, not rude, but like not helpful.
Unhelpful.
Yeah.
Because I would say he was also from Latin America, because we're used to a little bit more, nein, aber, like we can figure something out. But in Germany, it's like, nein, okay, that's it. Thank you. So another international was part of the conversation, told this other international, hey, I used to also start conversations like this, but I found out very quickly that by going directly with that question, it's like a German builds a wall, and that's it. You lost the person forever. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, there's always exceptions, right? But if we think about how the German might feel, going about his business, being in a shop,
living in Germany,
his entire life, maybe he's had some English in school, because of course there is this expectations of German speaking English. Different question where that comes from. However, maybe also media, like X% of Germans speak English, blah, blah. I don't know. And this question, Sprechen Sie English, puts the German on the spot. And this is where you always say the language is so precise and Germans are so precise. And I would say by getting asked this question is like what the German is hearing, are you fluent in English? And the answer is no, because I as a German am insecure. I don't know what the person wants and how far this conversation would be going. So I'm completely out of my depth. And I'm like, just no, I don't feel like it. Why should I? So this is what I could interpret, right? What I could imagine is just this, no, I'm not confident. I don't speak English.
And I would say this is super interesting because it highly depends, obviously, where you're coming from and what perceptions you have. I'm saying from the Latin American perception, as I mentioned, we're very, we find creative solutions for all kinds of problems. I think it's just maybe society-wise. Germans, in my perception, are very risk-averse. And when a German does something, they tend to be quite sure of it or very secure of it,
And very intentional also.
And very intentional. So by asking this question straight out of the bat, like you say, what they're hearing is like, are you fluent in German? And they immediately think in English. And they might immediately think, nope. Right, it's a reflection of like them saying like, I won't be able to help you as good as I want to help you. So nein, it's nein. And that's it. They're not going to take out the phone for showing you Google Analytics, Google Translation, or give you a piece of paper. That's the end of the conversation. So this other international, the tip giver, let's say, was saying, I actually have now gone into shops and places knowing what I want, and I start with German, even if I butcher the language, it's not perfect, maybe construction sentence is even not perfect, but the key words are there. And what I have usually received, says the tip giver, it's a very helpful attitude. And also they were given the example how they bought like a lotto ticket, and it's the very first time playing the lottery in Germany, no idea. So they took the ticket, went, and said like, Hilfe bitte, ich bin neu. I don't know exactly what they said, right? And actually the German was super helpful in explaining in super slow German and showing how it's done. And actually it was like both me and the other internationals like, wow, that is like super nice.
So I think it comes down to like 2-3 things. One is the effort you put out in terms of Guten Tag, Hallo, Guten Morgen, whatever. And then pretty much asking, können Sie mir helfen? Bitte. I think bitte is like, when you grow up as a German, it's like das Zauberwort. It's like the magic word that really opens the doors, is polite, and you're showing respect to the other person. So whenever you can add bitte to a sentence, it's already a massive success.
Definitely.
And like you said, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can also just say, Können Sie helfen, bitte?
Oder ich brauche Hilfe, bitte.
Exactly. And with that, you're instead of building a wall, you are taking a step forward, and you're making yourself vulnerable instead of putting the other person, the German in that case, on the spot. And you are making it more likely for the German to also let down their guard and maybe switch to English throughout the course of the conversation. I always laugh, especially when you're on the phone. What do you do?
Yeah, so I have had to talk a lot with Vodafone, not now, but in the past, right? Because of multiple, when moving into a new flat, internet issues or stuff like that. And I usually take the reign in our technical stuff. So I usually call up, and of course it's in German. So I start with Guten Tag. And then before, always used to start sprechen Sie English, and the Antwort is, nein. But then I followed up with, okay, dann vielleicht können wir Denglisch sprechen. Und that is like Deutsch mit Englisch. And usually I would get a little laugh. And they would say like, oh, yeah, okay, das können wir machen. Ne? And then I would speak my German. And then they would reply. And a lot of the times, actually, then they would switch to English out of nowhere. And I'd be like, but you just told me you don't speak English.
Because it's a common joke, right? That when between in the community, right? Then it's like Germans say they don't speak English, and then they start speaking fluently. Yeah. And I think it's psychological, right? I'd say the majority, not all. Depends also where you are in Germany of the English levels, because in the eastern parts, right, Russian was taught in school more than English. So it depends. But in the most cases, this expectation that one might have that Germans speak English tends to be correct. The question is to what level, right? And whether one identifies that, yes, I speak English. But again, if you loosen up a conversation by making an effort of speaking German, by being playful with it, and again, being vulnerable, the other side is it's so much easier to be vulnerable as well. And it always shows that you don't expect professionalism. So then it's not like, I don't hear anymore, do you speak English fluently? Yeah. It's more like, oh, you're making an effort, let's meet in the middle and we can speak Denglish, or I can speak English, and whenever I don't have a word, I say it in German, and we're trying together to find a word. It's just about the approach and the psychology behind it.
Definitely. Another tip is what I've also done in shops is to know exactly what I want. Let's say I'm looking for something specific or a shoe. I know exactly what I need, my size and everything. So I can read it off my phone, type it out, ask ChatGPT or Google Translate to translate the sentence or show the translation. And then Germans will react better that way, I think, And I would say definitely the word bitte, because in the past I've asked for help and I haven't said Guten Tag or bitte, and then I heard the answer is like, yeah, Guten Tag, ne, oder Guten Morgen und bitte, ne, yeah, and so I'm like, okay, it has to be a greeting. Ich brauche Hilfe, bitte, definitely. And I'm wondering from another perspective is that now that we were talking about this, I thought, okay, if I would be in Guatemala, living in my town, happily in Guatemala, where everything is in Spanish, my life is in Spanish, my friends are in Spanish, my phone is in Spanish, 100% Spanish, and then someone comes and asks me, disculpa, hablas, I'm doing the accent from the US, hablas inglés? And I'd be like, no. Why should I, right? Like, I have no need living in Guatemala to be fluent in English. Of course, you could argue the reasons of growth and integration and all these things, but we're talking about like shop owners, right? People that maybe just travel in Europe or have never really traveled because they don't like to, right? It highly depends on the person that is receiving the question and how they will perceive that question.
Yeah, definitely. It highly depends. I mean, one could argue, I just had this thought, okay, your Guatemala example, of course, I understand where you're coming from. However, at the same time, the Guatemalan government is not really asking for people to move there, right? Whereas the German government is actively wanting and inviting people to move to Germany. However, that's the government and not the people, the common people, the people on the street, the people in the shops, the people in the restaurants, the people whatsoever.
Exactly.
And I would also argue again, it's a generational thing, right?
Definitely.
100%, not just for English, but also other languages. For example, Spanish in the younger generation is so much more popular now to learn in school and be fluent than than second language. It's overtaking French, for example. And it highly depends, and this is again also where one is based and what the social circle is. Has the German had contact with internationals either within Germany because of colleagues or because they themselves, like myself, for example, has lived abroad. Not just traveled, because Germans love to travel, but I meant actually living abroad to have been on the other side and can empathize, right? So those play a factor. And of course, you never know who this person in front of you is or what they have done. But what we've come to also experience and be like, wow, is, for example, we were in South Bavaria, which, again, if you look at from a bird's eye view and from perception, not from stereotype, you would think they're most conservative, least open-minded, and whatsoever. And we were struggling to buy a parking ticket. It sounds, we were struggling to buy a parking ticket. And we were speaking English amongst each other, as we do. And this 60 plus, so older generation, lady approaches us in English, explaining crazy. Us how it works, giving us a tip, which ticket to buy, to save, and yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. Gave us the whole spiel. We didn't ask for it. She was just attentive, saw us struggling, probably has some background or where she had the same problem and someone helped her, or she's accustomed to internationals, whatsoever. It doesn't matter. So you can find all reactions on the spectrum. But again, by asking, sprechen Sie English, you're immediately putting yourself on a different level than the person you want to talk to.
Yes, 100%. And a great, to reemphasize what you said before, how much effort you put in is also how much effort you're going to come out. And I would say moving to Germany, inevitably, if you want to integrate and actually feel part of the culture, you need to speak German, at least to a certain level, to communicate with the people at the restaurant, people at the bakery, people at the lotto stand, at the kiosk, right? Because also in kiosk, you also get packages and stuff like that. So that's also a massive interaction that you need to deal with. Because also, I think it's unfair to put that expectation on that other person that they need to be fluent and ready in English to help you out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. To summarize, what we want to bring across is, do not start a conversation with sprechen Sie English. Puts up a wall. Instead, wherever you're going and asking that question, start with a greeting in German. Guten Morgen, guten Tag, hallo, guten Abend, whichever one it is. Express that you're looking for help. Können Sie mir helfen? Ich brauche Hilfe. And add a bitte. That's like the magical word. That should, again, no guarantee, but in the majority of cases, should pave the way to an actual conversation where you receive the help you're looking for without putting the other person on the spot.
Yes, and to add to that, maybe also have a sentence explaining what you actually need help with, because also saying ich brauche Hilfe, bitte, okay, with what will be the next question.
See, of course.
So also be prepared for that. For me, language really unlocked the culture in Germany, but I would not say like learning the language, but speaking the language, even if it's butchered to other people. And also the best way to unlock the culture is to meet the local people. And for that, we have a whole video on how you can make German friends here on the left. Until next time, tschüss!